All right, let's picture a world that is right on the brink of collapse. Today, we're going to journey back to medieval Anatolia to uncover something truly amazing, a group called Ahîlik, which basically became the social glue that held an entire society together.
But first, let's really set the stage. I want you to imagine it's the 13th century. Your government, it's falling apart. Anarchy is spreading everywhere. And oh yeah, there's a massive invading army right on the horizon. So, what do? What possibly keeps everything from just completely falling apart?
Well, for the people of Anatolia, the answer was this incredible institution called Ahîlik. The best way to think about it is like a powerful mix of a trade guild, a spiritual brotherhood, and a kind of knightly chivalric order, all rolled into one. It was a really complex system, born directly out of crisis, and to get our heads around it, we've got to look at where it came from, how it was structured, and the legacy it left behind.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the crisis that made Ahîlik necessary. Then, we'll trace its spiritual roots and meet the guy who founded it. After that, we'll see just how powerful it became, how the Ottomans changed it, and finally, we'll dig into the ethical code that is its truly lasting legacy.
Okay, first up, the social glue of Anatolia. Because you can't really get why Ahîlik was so important unless you understand the absolute chaos of the world that created it.
So the 13th century in Anatolia was a really rough time. The central Seljuk government was pretty much losing its grip, which led to chaos everywhere. And to make things way worse, the Mongol hordes were sweeping in from the east, threatening to burn it all down. A new way to organize society wasn't just, a nice idea. It was absolutely essential for survival. So, staring down all this chaos, where did this powerful new organization even come from? Well, to find out, we have to trace its roots, which are planted deep in the idea of brotherhood.
The name itself actually tells you a lot. Ahîlik probably comes from one of two words, either the Arabic ahi, which means my brother, or the Turkish aki, which means generous. So right there in the name, you've got the two core ideas, brotherhood and generosity. This was an organization built from the ground up to unite the tradesmen and artisans into one big supportive community.
But Ahîlik didn't just pop up out of thin air. It actually grew out of an older tradition called futuwa. You can think of this as a well-established Islamic code of ethics, almost like a knight's code of chivalry. It was all about virtues like selflessness, courage, and especially hospitality. This was basically the ideological DNA of the whole Ashihi movement.
Now what's so fascinating here is that the spread of this idea wasn't some random organic thing. Nope, it was a deliberate political project. Around the turn of the 13th century, the Abbasid Caliph al-Nasir started reorganizing these Futuwa guilds to make his own state stronger. He then sent missionaries and mystics into Anatolia to lay the groundwork. And it worked so well that by the 1220s, the Seljuk sultans themselves had formally joined up, giving it the ultimate stamp of approval.
So all of this state-sponsored momentum brings us to the man who gets the credit for being the chief architect of the whole movement, Ahi Evran.
Sheikh Nasiruddin Mahmud, who everyone knew as Ahi Evran, was the key organizer. He's the guy who took the big ideas of Futuwa and applied them directly to the craftsmen and artisans on the ground, creating this structured organization that governed both their work and their moral lives. And crucially, he had the full-throated support of Sultan Ala-ad-Din Kikubad, which let the movement just explode in growth across the land.
But to think of the Ahis as just a simple trade guild, well, that would be a huge understatement. They were so much more than that.
Just look at their structure. It shows you how seriously they took their mission. You didn't just sign up. It was a tough process. You'd start as a truck, an apprentice, learning not just a skill, but the deep ethical code of the organization. If you proved yourself, you could become a kalfa, or a journeyman, and only after you mastered both your craft and the Ahi principles could you become an usta, a master, a full member of the Brotherhood with a real say in things. And their reputation, it was immense. The famous 14th century world traveler, Ibn Battuta, was just completely blown away by them. He stayed in their lodges and wrote that literally everywhere he went in Anatolia, he found these brothers. He couldn't get over their incredible generosity and hospitality.
So here's the key takeaway. The Ahis pretty much ran the cities. On the economic side, they were the regulators, controlling quality, setting fair prices, and making sure production met everyone's needs. Socially, they were the safety net, providing welfare, giving travelers a place to stay. And when the state collapsed, they became the political and military authority, even defending cities like Kayseri from the Mongols. They were, without a doubt, the true backbone of society.
But that kind of power, well, it couldn't last forever. As the chaos of the 13th century started to fade and a new, powerful empire rose up, the role of the Ahîs began to shift. This was their Ottoman transformation.
You see, as the Ottoman state got stronger and more centralized, it just couldn't have a semi-independent power like the Ahîs running things in its cities. The early sultans had been members and used the Ahîs to help build their state, but by the 15th century, that relationship had totally changed. The organization was transformed, its political and military power was stripped away, and it became what's known as a lanka, a state-controlled economic guild focused only on craft and commerce.
But even though their political power faded away, the ethical soul of the Ahîs lived on, all written down in their enduring code of conduct.
See, these principles weren't just some spoken tradition. They were written down in books called Futufetname. The easiest way to think of these is as the constitution of the Ahî Brotherhood, a super detailed guide to their moral, social, and commercial life. To even join, you had to swear to live by this code.
And this code was demanding, to say the least. It required members to live and breathe virtues like honesty, generosity, and trustworthiness, and it had absolutely zero tolerance for anything that harmed the community. Things like fraud, lying, or even just gossiping, those were grounds to get kicked out of the Brotherhood for good. It was a complete blueprint for living an ethical life, both inside and outside of the workshop.
Which brings us to one last thought. In our modern world of global supply chains and anonymous online marketplaces, the Ahîs built a system that completely fused economic life with social responsibility. They answered chaos with community. They answered it with a shared moral purpose. And it really makes you wonder, in our own complex, often chaotic times, could this 800-year-old blueprint for ethical business and community still have a few lessons to teach us?